the meeting. Yep.
Okay, let's just get started here. Any addition, correction to the agenda?
Well, there's a minor one on page 5, which John will go over. So it's a change in the recommendation to item 2.
Okay, we'll get there. All right. Any members of the public online?
No, we have a board member attending remotely, observing the meeting only.
Okay,
And I'll take roll call just for the record.
yes.
Director Paul? Here. And Chair Riley?
Here.
And for the record, Directors Daniels and the alternate Director Lindor cannot attend.
Okay, that completes that part. Thank you. Action items, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The action, number 1 was the minutes from the February meeting. I move approval.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm skipping over that, sorry. I second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Sorry, I was looking at that in the next 7. Okay, next item, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are consent calendar, I think. Is that? Oh, these are individual action items. All right, sorry. All right, let's discuss item 2, the contract for PSI.
Yeah, I can take that if you and then Nikhil, you can follow up if I think I've skipped over something. So Nikhil did say that there is a change to the recommendation. The recommendation says to enter into a contract amendment. The word amendment should be struck. We do not have a existing contract. So that's the only change. So to give you the background on this, the district developed the Carmel River Basin hydrologic model back in 2020. It is a model that simulates rainfall on the Carmel River topographic grid, and then routes water down through the streamflow networks, and it then interacts with the Carmel Valley alluvium. And it was chosen, this special code was chosen because it is the one that is recommended by the United States Geological Survey for rivers that are highly connected to groundwater, so when you pump the groundwater, you can affect the surface water. So the main things we really wanted to try to understand was what would happen if you removed Los Padres Dam and you lost the ability to do the slow releases out of the dam throughout the summer. Where would we expect the river to dry to? And we wanted to understand what would happen at that point in time. We had not entered into the full ramp down of the cease and desist order, and we wanted to try to understand what we thought was the river would look like when we were only pumping 3,376 acre feet off the river a year. So this model was developed with a team from the USGS, and it was actually developed with a PhD research scientist at the USGS at that time, whose name was Rich Nieswanger, and you'll see that in the staff note. And he's actually the individual that wrote this code for this model. We originally had developed the model from 1991 up to 2015, and we had a desire to update the model with the last 10 years of climate and check the calibration of the model, to use it for moving forward, to look at things like climate change, to look a little bit closer at Los Padres and some of the pumping patterns that we're seeing now in the river. And to have a working model. Since that point in time, we had hired Montgomery, because you'll have seen their name associated with modeling for our district as well. But they're primarily, at the time that we were using them, we had used them to run the seaside groundwater model, and they largely supported, Montgomery did the effort for permitting of Pure Water Monterey. So they were really kind of the experts for the Seaside Basin, and the USGS was the experts for the Carmel River Basin. During the changes in the USGS through the changing administration, Rich has left the USGS now and is now working. There was a point in time when he was not available because he had changed the position in the USGS. So we had said, okay, let's onboard Montgomery to this model in the Carmel River Basin. But since then, Rich has left the USGS and joined the firm, joined this firm here, which is GSI. And so he is now available for us to hire to do this work that we really wanted him to do in the first place. So it's kind of a serendipitous moment that we could reach back out to him and get him back. So we've already had this in the budget, placed it in the budget, and had kind of a general modeling contract with Montgomery. And we've talked with people at Montgomery, and they have more work and could not get to this for a number of months, 6 or so. And so we want to move this over a contract with this firm and then do this work to calibrate the model and move it forward. And then I'll give it to you, Nikhil, if you have anything to add, or we can take questions.
Well, thank you for that technical background. I don't, from a contractual standpoint, this is entering into a contract with GSI Environmental. And since it's a professional services contract, we aren't required to bid it out. This is, we can make a selection based on competence and qualifications. And so if this is the most well-qualified firm and they have, the staff that's needed to manage these detailed models, then the staff can make a recommendation to go with GSI. And
Directly without bidding it out.
yes, so no competitive solicitation is required since it's a professional service. That's all I
Let
have.
me just clarify, because it's professional services, that was the phrase you used, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and I can go into details too, but.
Familiarity with the specific.
Familiar with you, exactly. If it's a general service or if you are building a construction contract, then you are required to go with the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. But if it's a professional services contract, our purchasing policy gives us the leeway to not select someone just based on price, get the best value, best competence. So that's how, this recommendation's coming about.
Mhm.
Okay. Good. I have some questions for Jonathan.
Yeah, I do too.
Why don't you go?
Okay. So thank you for this, Jonathan. I would like you to explain to me exactly what calibration means. I can sort of guess, but my guess may be off slightly. I'm guessing it is something along the lines of figuring in and weighting and figuring out the interactions between various different variables like climate and rainfall and seasons and different factors that could interact to understand how the surface water and groundwater are interacting under different scenarios. Is it something like that?
Yeah, it is. It's so what you do is you have a couple of things that you're calibrating to. And for groundwater systems, you're calibrating to groundwater levels. And for a surface water component of the model, you're calibrating to flows at specific locations. So when you calibrate a model, you take the historic observed data. So we know that it rained this much. We know that groundwater levels were this level at this day in this well, and we know that the stream flow was this stream flow at this location on this day. So we have actual historical data. And so what you're calibrating it to is you're comparing the historical data to the model output for that same time period to see how closely they match. And there's actually very strict standards that you have to get a model into and it comes into specific statistics like R-squared values and Nash-Sutcliffe index, and it gets really deep into statistics really fast. But there's a scientific standard to which you compare your model to the historic data, and you calibrate it and you get it to a certain point, and you can actually give a model a calibration score. And so, it's you want your model to get it's fair, good, and very good, and you want your model at least in the good range. Sometimes it depends on how much data you have, where you have the data spatially as well, um, how well you can do it. And you can add climate, you can update your climate data, and then when you check it again, your model can have fallen out of the category of calibration that you had got it to. So let's say we update the data, and because the new data has changed and pumping has gone down over the time of the data set that we're going to enter it, the model falls out of calibration. It goes from good to fair. We'll need to take it back, and you actually put it on another program which is called parameter estimation. And it actually runs the model many times, and it adjusts the parameters, the hydraulic parameters of the different grid cells in the model. And it just kind of walks through that, and it finds kind of this is the best fit that I could get to throughout all these iterations. Then there's a little bit of human touch to it once you get it to that point, and saying this area of the model is a little bit more important to me. For example, we don't really we would trade off hitting the high flow numbers during the floods for getting calibrating the model to the timing of the model when the river is actually drying back, because that's what we really care about. So you get to even choose where you want your model to be better at in different types of of what the model's simulating.
Very interesting. So in our use of the model so far, the model that we have currently, has it met your expectations, and how useful would you say it has been so far? Uh,
Yeah, it's been useful in so you can get it to check your calibration to match the historic values of the model. Then you start putting scenarios in it, and you start saying, and then you compare the scenarios. So these types of models, you can't say if we took Los Padres Dam out, first off, it wouldn't impound the water and that it does at the beginning of the year, and then it wouldn't have the water to release during the end of the year. So when we do that, we see, oh, the river's drying back a little bit further because we don't have water to put into the river in the summertime, but exactly where it dried back to, you don't know. You have only the good confidence in it, but what you're seeing is kind of a comparison, not quite orders of magnitude, but comparison this is much wetter, this is much drier, it is drying back more, but is it going to dry back to this exact river mile? That's the type of thing. It's a useful guidance tool, but it's not going to give you the exact answer. And there's really no way to prove that answer is absolutely correct, because you're making up the scenarios, but you're testing and comparing scenarios to learn how to best manage the natural systems.
Thank you for that. And would it be helpful to the district in considering Los Padres Dam scenarios, alternatives, the different possible alternatives to that situation?
It would be, you can put the dam in, you can take the dam out, you can dredge the dam so you have more storage, so you can test all those scenarios. We also are specifically using this because we have, if you remember, our water rights are the 2808 A, B, and C water rights, where the 2808A and the 2808C water rights are related to our diversions for ASR. But the 2808B water right is still sitting there and has not been assigned to a project. And I'm the process is it was assigned to the new Los Padres Dam, which is obviously never going to be built. So the ASR programs have cleaved off parts of those water rights and then reassign them to new projects. So our idea is to recalibrate this model, get it up current running, and test scenarios of other projects that could possibly take advantage of the remaining water right from Los Padres that's sitting there. So that's our division's plan for this. Thomas's division's plan is to definitely test the fate of Los Padres.
And have you discussed any of this with the Water Supply Planning Committee, or is that are you planning to?
We had at the beginning of the kind of onset of this is really just kind of changing which contractor we want to do the work, but we brought the whole technical side of this through those committees before.
Yeah, okay. One last question from me for now, and that is what are the Python tools?
Python Python is a programming language, much like, C plus is or basic, and it's just a different tool where it's kind of where people are moving forward. And so when you forward to using these Python coding, and when you get the way that the ModFlow model works is it is running through step by step, the time step by time step, and it's doing a monthly time step on the groundwater section and then simulating daily stream flow. So it's putting out these gigantic data sets that are just like there's something that's called the output file. And when you run a model like this, the output file is like 6 GB and everything is just written to the same file and it's written through. So these scripts know how to go through that huge text file, find the specific things you want, and then create interactive, much like if you go on our website and you can see like the real-time stream flow and rain, it puts graphically out where we can start parsing through the model and doing these different types of things. So it makes it much easier to run a model and then run these tools, load them into these visualization tools, and kind of see what you're doing. You're looking at these different parts of the river, and so it's just kind of the newest visualization tool using the newest hottest code that's on the market.
Thank you. Over to you,
Yeah,
George.
Jonathan, if Karen doesn't ask the question at our regular board meeting, I think I might. I like your explanation of how to define calibration, or what does that really mean? And I think that short little discussion ought to be for the entire board to hear, to see what that means in a practical sense and how you apply it. It's one thing to have just a mathematical term in our discussions, but what does it mean? I'm glad you asked the question. I wasn't on my mind, but I think it was very informative. I have a couple other questions. Just on the Los Padres Dam a moment. It seems to me the climate change issue is creating more fire danger than we've ever had before. Is there an impact analysis of what fires in the Los Padres area and so on, and what does it mean to the health or ability of the dam to survive or be useful, or any preventive areas, or anything along just the fire threat to the ability of the dam to be useful?
Sure. So, you would have to apply the model to a scenario like that. You would have to pick an area that you think would be susceptible to burn. So if you're looking specifically at the dam, you would say, well, what happens if the catchment areas above the dam all burn? So what that's going to do is that's going to create faster movement of water when water falls onto that burned section of the watershed. So there are coefficients that are in the model that control how much rainfall needs to fall on the ground based on different vegetation densities, different other parameters that then respond how fast does this accumulation of rainfall turn into overland flow is what it's called in the model. So you would turn that up so you would get more faster overland flow from those sections. So that would simulate the actual burned surface of the watershed, and then you would then you have in the model you have a stage and volume, so depth and then how much volume is in your reservoir. And then you would pick some type of sedimentation rate that we'd seen based on other fires to that dam, and you would decrease the available volume to store water. And through playing with those two parameters, we could say this is the effect we think that would have on this watershed and this dam. And then now that we have less water, we can look at what the less water does to the rest of the system. So that's exactly what this tool's for.
Well, and then just in what could the district do besides just having the information? And I'm just wondering, Mike, I look in your direction too. Is there a way that the district could, let's say there's a fire threat or there's a fire actually going on? Can we request the fire response agencies to prioritize a certain area of the forest to attack or put, dampen down the fire? In a way that kind of is related to the watershed, but not just the forest itself. I mean, but if it's in the watershed, it's a higher priority than deeper in the forest. I don't know. I'm just making up words, but here.
That's a good question, George, and I think we should probably have those conversations with them now, while there's not a threat.
Yeah.
Say, hey, the district would prefer, this suppression here versus, but maybe, once that happens, they're just trying to put out a fire and you don't have time to think about it.
Sure.
I think it'd be proactive and a good conversation to have. Cal Fire.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to think of how can we kind of mention climate change or the threats that are presented with climate change. And how can we even mention the word and have a thought about some follow-up related to it? Yeah, that's all. It's whether it's a plan or something or other.
Sure.
I'm just constantly looking for that.
Yeah.
So back to the second point, which I wanted to make was the Tualacitas Creek watershed. You call it a watershed, but I understand it's within a watershed. What's going on there?
Well, the Tualacitos Creek, it's the area of the model that needs the most work to calibrate. It was the area that had the worst fit to stream flow. Tualacitos is along Carmel Valley Road. Once you get past Tasahara, you go into the northern fork, which is known as the Tualacitos watershed. It's a much drier watershed. It's got some exposed sandstones, so it doesn't run off as fast. It's actually the creek that when you cross into Sleepy Hollow neighborhood up there, you drive right over the Tualacitos Creek right there. And so it when we talk about in models, there's a term called time of concentration for a watershed. So it's basically how much rainfall can this watershed take before it actually starts to produce a substantial amount of runoff. And the Tualacitos watershed, it usually needs about 12 inches of rain in our historic data set before it really starts to respond. So all of the water is coming from the southern fork of the Carmel, coming down through the old dam system, coming out of San Clemente Creek, coming out of Pine Creek, up in the upper watersheds. And when you get these huge floods, it's because you've had quite a bit of rainfall and you've had about 10 to 15 inches of rainfall already. And then you get these like 3 or 5 inch storms in like 5 days. And the Tualacitos watershed is no longer absorbing that water, but it's running off the water. It's like you've put plastic down over the top of all the sandstone. It's full of water and the water just runs off it. So that we want to calibrate the lag to and the amount of rain that the Tualacitos watershed has to take before it creates a substantial amount of water. Because what that was doing was it was translating to there being too much water too early in the lower watershed, where in the historic data sets we didn't see Tualacitos producing runoff. And in the model we did, and this goes back to Director Paul's question is how useful is it? If we know that that part's wrong, we can ignore that part of the results coming out, but we want to fix it so that it's right.
Okay, was there, and I'm trying to remember, do I remember things wrong or not, but I thought there was potential, a thought process that included Tuacitas Creek as a potential reservoir source?
You're not wrong. I was talking about Turlesionis. I misunderstood your question to be related to the calibration of this model, but there is this model. The unupdated version has been used to look at the possibility of in the area that is the Chapinas Creek drainage, if there was a possibility. So let's see, the district probably in the early 90s looked at possible off main stem dams up there where you could divert water out and store them behind a dam and dam that watershed. At that point in time, the landowners were not interested in surface water impoundments. It's used for cattle grazing, all that area, and the idea was if feasible, that it showed we could inject water into the Turlecitas area, divert it off the river, use our water right, and put it in there, and that might be more compatible, or there might be new landowners to have a couple well fields out there instead of a surface water impoundment. So there is an ongoing study. We're wrapping it up. We're finalizing the report, but I can give you a spoiler alert that it's not looking all that great.
Good spoiler alert to know about. Okay, well, thank you. I was just curious when I saw it listed here as a specific item in the task numbers. Okay, thank you for all of that. Are there other questions?
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments. First, Mike McCullough, that your suggestion that we talk to the fire district now, early to let them know that we have this tool, that it's giving information, that some of it might be relevant and useful to their planning and their, prioritizing and in advance, because when there's a fire, they're not going to want to be surprised by information they don't know if it's useful, right? So that's yeah, I agree that let them know that what we have and what we think might be useful to their planning when there's no fire. Yeah,
Now's a good time.
yeah. So that's good thinking. Could any of this information be also useful in terms of predicting flood patterns, or do we know enough about flood patterns without this model?
I think for real-time predicting of flood patterns, we have there is a NOAA model that is posted on the website, on the NOAA website. And there's also a link to it off of our interactive streamflow models, and it's at the Robles del Rio gauge, and it gives predictions of stages of floods in real time based on a model that they run. So as far as kind of that flood action, and then the county resource agency is the flood control authority on the Carmel River. So, but we're interacting with them. But as far as this model's also been used in what's called, Mike, do you remember the name of the study that was this Carmel River and the Salinas Basin? It's like the rivers, I can't remember it. But anyways, they're wrapping that up as well, where they've looked at a number of climate scenarios, and as far as flood patterns through the to expect with climate change, that this model is actively being used for that right now, and there should be a report coming out within this year, I would guess.
Okay, good, thank you.
Good, thank you. I have no more questions. I move, we recommend the board enter into a contract with GSI for this.
Yeah, I second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Seems like a very impressive organization, GSI,
Yeah,
with their credentials, experience, and resources.
and this guy in this longer,
Yeah.
pretty impressive there too. I'm glad there's a good working relationship there. Okay, next item is action item number 3, a resolution authorizing exemption of CalPERS 180-day limit.
Now that we got the most interesting item out of the way, I'll go over the rest of the staff reports. So, yes, this item 3 is is a recommendation to the board to authorize an exception to the 180-day wait rule that CalPERS has before the district can hire a retired annuitant, and to also authorize and execute an employment agreement with Stephanie. So as you may have already known that the district's water demand manager is finally retiring after 3 decades of service, and counting. And so the district is actively recruiting for her replacement. We anticipate that, the new person might be here end of this month or next month sometime. And we want to make sure that there's a seamless transition and there's a good transfer of knowledge, but, from Stephanie to the new person. And so there are some post-retirement employment rules that CalPERS has. They want what's called the bona fide separation of service. And so they want a 180-day break in service. However, if there's a critical need, then through a resolution that can be waived. And so that's what this resolution is. It's requesting a waiver of that 180-day wait period. And then there are additional requirements that are required for this employment agreement. And one of them is that the hourly rate has to be within the range, within the minimum and maximum range for the position. And so that is what's being proposed here. And then this agreement is being proposed till June of 2027, which is end of next fiscal year. And we went through an additional step and ran this resolution past the CalPERS analyst and seemed to have received his blessing. So, once the board approves this, then, we can get Stephanie on board and she can start the training process and, just have a seamless transition. So that's it. I mean, the recommendation is to waive the 180-day wait period for hiring retired annuitant and entering into an employment agreement with Stephanie Law.
Is there a duration that it's limited by the PERS rules? Duration of time for this kind of acceptance?
That's a good question. I believe it's the limited term.
So the answer is no. The limitation is they cannot work more than 960
60
hours a year,
A fiscal year.
a fiscal year.
Yeah.
So
Just half-time.
Half-time.
basically. Yeah.
So that is the limitation. It could go on indefinitely, but obviously that's not the purpose.
Okay, I think I have a question, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Just a comment, it's good that you ran it by CalPERS. Yeah, that's just a,
They have a very stringent audit in place, which we went through when we did something similar last time. So we learned from that.
yeah, okay, good. Well, it seems like when we would need Stephanie's help in the transition most is the first 6 months. That period that we would waive. I don't know that we might not need to continue that all the way to June 2027. We might not need her help that long, but I guess
Thank you for bringing that up. I think the way the agreement is structured is it's on an as-needed basis. And so it's up to the general manager to decide and approve these time commitments. If we get approval till the end of next fiscal year, then we don't have to come back to the board because CalPERS does look at what is the time frame of this approval. And if we have to go beyond, then we have to come up with another resolution. But yeah, I think the 960 hours per fiscal year, and then ultimately it's up to the general manager to decide how long she's needed.
that seems fine too.
And through the chair, that is addressed within the contract itself, stating that she is an at-will employee that can be terminated at any time with or without cause.
Thank you.
Great, that's a good reminder. You want to make a motion?
Yeah, I move we recommend approval to the board.
I second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Michelle, you're still on, item 4.
Yep. That's a standard treasurer's report. This is for the month of February. And we started the month with about 36.5 million in cash and investments, and we ended the month with about 33.8 million. So there were more disbursements that happened. We received about 660,000 in cash and made disbursements of 3.3 million. So what ended up happening this in the month of February is we made a payment for the purchase of pure water from the month of December. Now, since the expansion has gone into effect, we are purchasing bigger volumes of water. So for December, we purchased, I think, around 600 acre feet, and that's that's like 2.6 million. So we received that money in end of January and made the payment in February, and that's most of the 3.3 million. And then we also received some grant funds from the State Water Resources Control Board, which is, and this is listed in page 43. I mean, you can see the exact amounts. And so that's for the expansion project. So between the two, that's most of the expenses for the month of February. So that's 3.3 million. And then, detailed listing is on pages 43 through 46, Exhibit B. And then the statement of revenues and expenses, Exhibit C, that's pages 47 and 48. Nothing out of the ordinary so far. We are tracking the expenses as per our budget, and our revenues, seem to be coming as expected, both for the property taxes and the user fees. Yeah, we do.
When does the board get a report on our assets as opposed to just cash in the bank? And I'm thinking of the value of the water that we're buying and storing in the Seaside Basin. Is there is it?
Yes,
That,
how much water has been, so, I think Dave's report is 2,500 acre feet of pure water Monterey, and then there's ASR water. We book those as assets on our books, and they get carried from year to year. Usually at the end of the fiscal year, we recognize the asset. So we purchase the water, and instead of recording it as an expense, we book it as an asset. An asset is a future, we are going to make a future sale. So that's why and it's being booked at the rate at which we bought the water for that fiscal year. And we can generate a report, it's there, but I think it's going to match what I think our general manager has. Every month, the general manager produces a report that goes to CalAm. It says this is how much water has been sold, and this is how much is in the assets. So the dollar value of that water is in our books, and that's just the total amount of acre feet. Mike might have more.
Yeah, so George, I think you're getting to like, how much do we have in operating reserve and stuff like that?
yes.
And so. And she'll just talk about the report that we send to CalAm every month. And so, we met company water in February, the amount that was, we needed to meet. And so for the rest of this fiscal year, we're going to kind of split water for CalAm and water to go into reserves. And so, we can produce that report that says, hey, in March, we put 200 acre feet in reserve and gave CalAm 199 acre feet. So that we can meet that operational reserves, hopefully by the end of this fiscal year. And so that's already set aside. And to Shill's point, then that'll be an asset in our books as an operational reserve. And then kind of the same thing with ASR is that, we're not paying to produce it, but we know how much is there and what could be used in the future.
Yeah, my question is simply, when the board receives some of the financial reports, and I'm just trying to get to, how do we present that as an asset? I mean, do we get an asset report? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, in the last 2 years, that's not something that we have given to the board, but we can. So this is what it is. Like there's a beginning balance, and this one's hard to see, but there's 2,552 acre feet in operating reserve. And it was purchased at different rates every year, and that's sitting on our books as like 7 million worth of reserve. And we can get that report, but this is what it is. This goes to Callum every month.
Yeah, I know we get the volume reports,
Yeah.
regularly. And it's all good. I mean, I don't have any problem with any of that. But I'm just curious about the value of that. Do we get any report on the value of it as opposed to the volume of it?
We can provide that report.
Okay, maybe it's a year-end kind of
Yeah.
summary statement and somewhere and so on. I would just.
Like semi-annually or something like that.
Well, I don't know. I just haven't seen it, and it just occurred to me that it is value and treat it as value, and I know you will it. But I didn't know whether we, as a board,
This information.
looks at it that way.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking out loud. This information is also in our annual comprehensive financial report, the audited statements that come to the board. There's a summary section I think in the transmittal or in the management discussion analysis, we break out our assets, like assets in ASR, and our biggest asset is water in the ground. So that information should be there on our ACFR.
Okay, I just need to look for it, or you need to call attention to it and so on, just when it's in front of us.
Definitely. My information's there. And
That is a good reminder. I'd forgotten that it was there.
Yeah, well, I think, you know it's there.
yes,
Yeah.
and 7 million.
You may not know in theory,
Yeah.
you think beyond, but yeah, it's a good idea. Something.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can pull it up, but it's around 7 million. It's in there, and we can provide a breakout by year as well.
So that may,
A breakup by year, at some point, that might be very useful to look at.
Right.
so, and just a numbers thing, which I didn't try to count, but I didn't know how to count it. On page 44. We've got the what it's called, a public employee, whatever it is, anyway, when an employee retires, we're still on the hook for supporting their health insurance, whatever. So,
Yes.
some supplementals, anyway. And I'm just wondering how many employees are in this list? I'm just curious. Then I don't need to know today. That's just a question I have, and maybe at some point in a future meeting, you can just
Yes.
send me an email or send it to us, an email saying how many are employees. Because I just don't recommend, I recognize a lot of names, but there's a lot I don't.
Right. We have that information. We track that as well. This is on the Act for page 12, Clearwater Monterey Water Reserve. It's under capital assets, 684,000. So it's slightly less than 700,000. So
But
that's
that number is gonna go up significantly this fiscal year.
as because of
Okay,
expansion.
Both the volume and the value.
Yes.
Hmm.
So I think you remember a month or so ago, we talked about trying to fill up the operating reserve and then started a drought reserve. So we're trying to do that all within this fiscal year, and that will go to that volume, and the value will also increase on both fronts.
Yeah. Good. It's just, little things that kind of help complete a thought process.
Sure.
That some of us
Good idea.
have. Okay. So, I'm okay with the reports. I'd recommend approval of the reports to the board, adopt the report for the board.
A second, your motion?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Not a well worded motion, but still, we're fine.
Recommend-
There it is.
Recommend approval to the board.
Okay, next item is number 5 on the software agreements, multiple.
Yes, this is a two-part action item. So the first part is authorization of a number of software subscriptions that the district has. And these subscriptions are in place to, make everyone's life easier, basically run our operations smoothly. And they fall in 4 or 5 different categories. One is GIS applications that we have. We have database applications, document handling applications like Microsoft Office or Adobe. And we have antivirus and security, spam protection, and backup services. So all of that is actually laid out in the staff report, and this is a summary. This is based on our historical spending. We don't have exact numbers, but we have ballpark numbers that we're using for the budget. The three big ones here are Tyler Technologies. This is our financial ERP system, the enterprise resource planning system, where we run our accounting, budgeting, and accounts receivable, payables, HR, everything. So that's 38,000. Acela, which is being used for permitting and inspections, that's 39,000. And then we also back up all of our servers into the cloud. And so we have agreement with Veeam, which is a Microsoft, or Azure, which is a Microsoft product. So that's another 26,000. And the rest are smaller subscriptions. And we are just recommending that the board continue with these subscriptions. So that's part one of the staff report. And then the second part is we are also nearing the end of our 3-year term. We have an IT services agreement that's expiring on June 30th. And we went out to local vendors. We would like someone local, like who can come here and troubleshoot stuff. And so we only received one more quote from a local vendor, but that quote was about 2 times higher. Divera is very responsive. The current IT services provider that we have, and they have a good understanding of our systems, our workstations, servers, the types of programs that we use. And at this point, we're recommending that we enter into another 3-year agreement with them. And then after that, go on a month to month, just in case if we aren't able to negotiate an agreement, then, we aren't losing their service. So, so that's the month to month. And then in the agreement, you may have also noticed that the agreement has 2 contract provisions. One limits the liability to their insurance limits, and then for resolution of dispute, they wanted a good faith negotiation, mediation, or arbitration. And the district is in agreement with that. We've consulted with the district attorney. I think that's a major risk that we are willing to live with. And just to get a little bit more into what the agreement is, this is what we buy, and this is hard to read, but we pay Divera based on the number of workstations and the number of servers that they manage. In prior years, we had around 28 workstations and about 24 servers. We have tried to optimize our services because for an organization our size, 24 servers was a lot, and we said, can we, cut down any servers that aren't being used, any old servers, and that's what we did. So the new proposal is 17 servers, and if you add the total cost, it's exactly the same that we would be paying, that we are paying currently. So the new agreement is at the same price as the old agreement because we have incorporated some kind of efficiencies into how we do things. So they manage certain licenses, and then they would manage workstations and servers. And they were very competitive, and no one's close to them. And we're recommending that we just enter into a new 3 years agreements with them. Questions?
Yes,
Go ahead.
through the chair.
Yes.
The provision you mentioned earlier about dispute resolution, is that something new or different from the current contract?
From the current contract, I will have to pull up the current contract. It might be different. I think they wanted to limit the amount of legal liability that they're exposed to as a small firm.
Yeah.
And we aren't here to take undue advantage of them or anything.
Right.
So they provide a service. We have backups. the probability of anything major going wrong is small. I think the biggest risk we have is, hey, our servers are down and no one can do anything. But then we back up everything in the cloud. And they push a button and they can rewind the tape, download that, and then everything's working. But we don't foresee a huge risk with them at this point, other than that.
Yeah, I was just curious if it's a change. And what's their responsibility in terms of cybersecurity? I think we have a different consultant, don't we, for some
Yes.
aspects of that?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So there are a number of things going on here. So there are the shelf tools that we use for cybersecurity needs. We have Sonic Wall, which is a firewall that's kind of protecting our workstations and servers. We also have Proofpoint, which is spam filters. We have an antivirus software that they manage. And then we also have a network engineer that modulates the number of ports that someone can get into. And so the ports are switched off. Like, okay, if there's a request coming from this server, then this port is active. So he does his engineering thing on that side, but then there's off-the-shelf solutions that we use, and that's pretty typical. And so far, we haven't encountered anything major. There are some phishing emails that come from time to time, and there are always new actors that find ways to kind of infiltrate, but we know how to watch for them, and it needs a little bit of training, staff training. Hey, don't click an attachment, if it passes through our filter. From time and again, there will be some emails like that, and we try to test stuff out by sending out false emails and seeing if anyone's actually clicking it. And but other than that, those are isolated cases, and it's, the systems that we have in place seem to be doing pretty decent job at this point, protecting our IT infrastructure and services.
And I presume Devira has all the normal precautions and so forth in mind when they
They do offer a step up in service. If this is something that we would like to explore further, they have their they call it the security suite or something, and it's an additional payment. And we could also look into that, have them come here and provide some kind of a presentation. But so far, with the size of workstations that we have, I think what we have seems to be working.
A question on conflict resolution. The options that were presented, are they at the Devera's choice about which technique, which
There was
they
some.
want to use, as opposed to, we'll be able to say in that?
Yes, thank you for asking that. They came back, they proposed this language, and there was some back and forth in terms of negotiation that I think we inserted mediation into that. But and Michael, feel free to chime in, but here we aren't here to make money through through suing anyone, and that's not our intent. Our intent is provide the best service for everyone, and they're covered by their insurance. So they wanted to avoid the legal route, but then also have an avenue to resolve any disputes. And I think arbitration, mediation, negotiation seems to be something that the district could live with. But Michael, you know, anything to add?
So the contractor wanted binding arbitration. Sorry. One binding arbitration within the contract. Typically, binding arbitration is not favorable for public agencies because we're seen as the deep pocket, and arbitrators typically find against public agencies. But we did try to mitigate that by having a non-binding arbitration step in between. And then ultimately, Nikhil and the general manager thought that the risk was worth it not to fight, and just leave the binding arbitration within the contract.
So it would be
Good.
non-binding arbitration, and then if that isn't resolved there, then binding, is that what you?
Non-binding mediation, and then if that we're able to resolve it through mediation, then we would go to an arbitrator.
Oh, okay,
Okay, yeah, well, I like that step process better than
yeah, I do too.
just binding arbitration at the choice of a corporate interest. Yeah, I agree. I appreciate your comments.
And we also have a track record with them, or they have a track record with us. You know, we know how they have been doing in the past 3 years. And so that was another factor that we considered.
I mean, in all likelihood, if there was any issue, it would be resolved by through discussion. I mean,
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
that's the reality, but yeah, just good to, you know what we're agreeing to, be clear on it.
We might have taken a more extreme position if this was a brand new vendor that we've never done business with. But you know, we have a good working relationship with them, and we want to continue it that way.
Sure.
Well, they're local. They're not coming out of,
Yeah,
Texas.
they're right here. Yep.
It's good. I like these little side information pieces to this whole thing. That's why this committee is kind of important to me. There's so many things you can learn if we get the participation.
I think it's important.
Yeah, that's good for me too.
It enables us to be better informed.
Yeah. So I have no other questions on this contact. I'll move the board approve this a series of contracts.
Yes. I second your motion to recommend approval to the board.
Those all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
And
Near the end, I think,
yeah,
Okay. I have no questions on information item number 6. And what else do we have? I think we have the common agenda.
You don't want to hear an update from the show number 8.
yeah.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the active. Okay,
It's after
information
the
reports.
informational items.
Is there a status report on number 7, the ownership question?
That's an informational item, Measure J.
It's in our
It's
packet.
just a list of contracts and so on.
Yeah, it's just current spending for part 4. And we just spent 65,000 in Measure J related expenses in February. And so far, that's 2.2 million spent. Excuse me, 834 in spent for part 4. And most of this is consulting services. We hired a utility consultant, Close and Associates, and then Webb and Associates. They're consulting, and they're mostly helping with what's the term of art? They're reviewing requests from Calam.
Oh, discovery.
Discovery, yes.
Yeah.
So that's the majority of expenses for Measure J.
Ongoing.
No motion, no discovery motions, just discover, a lot of discovery. Yeah.
That's not easy. You gotta put your mind really to work on this, on the discovery.
Utilities have pretty big staffs to deal with discovery. You know, it's a whole department of people to manage discovery.
Well,
Yeah.
I was telling somebody the other day, I had some conversation. And they said, well, can Callahan do this or Callahan do that? And I said, look, their strength is with their attorneys. Not their outreach, not their service, not their engineers, not their finance people, it's with their attorneys. So that's why we're in litigation all the time.
Can be very time consuming.
Okay, well, thanks for the updates and so on. So item 8 is the wait a minute.
Water supply charge situation.
Situation is a good
Water
one.
supply charge.
Yes, this is at the request of the committee last time, or maybe maybe in January, there was a request made where the committee wanted to know how the district is doing with the water supply charge reimbursements. So there's a short answer and a long answer, and The short answer is all the checks went out in March. And the long answer is there was a lot of learning along the way, things that we didn't anticipate. And from database issues to the volume of disbursement, the district has never dispersed such a huge volume. And so we've worked through those things as we went along. I have a few slides prepared. So this was a multi-step process, starting from step one, where we got a preliminary approval from the court. And I won't go into all of this, but the final judgment was entered in December 31st. And that started a 60-day clock. And I think it started what's called the effective date. And we were supposed to confirm the net settlement fund that was remaining, and then send the service award, the attorney fees, and then start refunding the checks. So we followed that timeline strictly, and we have kind of met all the milestones here. The total amount of settlement funds were 3.3 million. We had to be subtracted out the class council fees that were paid in March, about $500,000 service award and district expenses, and we were left with a net settlement fund of 2.6 million. And this fund was distributed among about 31,000 parcels. So we built 31,000 parcels through the property taxes, but there were some parcels that are consolidated, some were split, so we had to go through that exercise. And then we realized that the total number of parcels were 32,000. Then we were ready to go. And then we realized that we needed a final approval from the attorney. The attorneys are the class council, and the class council needed to give us their blessings that, please send the payments out. So we sent them a list early before March, and then we were told that, hey, please make sure that the owners for these parcel numbers are the same owners as in fiscal year 23-24. So we had the parcels right, but we weren't sure if the owners were right. So we reached out to 3 different county agencies, the county auditor, the tax collector, and the assessor. And then this was like a 2 exercise where we frantic phone calls. We got this information from the assessor's office. The property owner on record for fiscal year 23-24. We got that information, compared that with the database that we had. And because time was short, we got a partial approval from them. Said, hey, these owner names are matching with what we had submitted before. So we got the first approval of 28,000 parcels on March 4th. And then there were others where the owners didn't match. So we went back and looked up those owners, and then had that entire database was kind of filtered through what's called the National Change of Address Database, NOCA. And then we tried to find the current addresses, owners that were living. And I think a big chunk, 90% plus, we were able to filter through that, although there was a small portion where we didn't get the address. So on March 27th, we kind of got that data correct, and that was another 3,500 parcels. And then we got a second approval from them. They said they gave us the green light, and then we issued those payments. There were also some international addresses, Germany, Hong Kong, whatnot. Those were done in-house. And so we wrote those checks, printed those checks in-house, and sent them out. So, and this is probably more information than necessary, but we also had to create workarounds because our financial system wasn't set up to send 31,000. So this was back in conversations with the director of accounts payable, with Tyler Muniz, and we said, can you do this before and we will account for it later? This is like we reverse the process. We do accounting first and then send the checks out. We had to send the checks out, and now we are doing the accounting. But at least we hit the milestone. So all these things in the mix, but the checks are out at this point. We are receiving some phone calls, and we're tracking that information. So there are some, we're receiving kind of the same set of questions. The first question is, well, what's this check for? Some people don't know that. Then we have to kind of educate them and say, this is a refund that was on your property taxes for this fiscal year. And then we're also giving them the name, the district's website, where we have all the information on the water supply charge. And then the second big question that we're getting is, well, this was the check is in a trust name or or on the name of an estate, and our standard response there is, well, have the trust encash it, because we are supposed to send the payments back to members of the settlement class, and the settlement class is who or is the property owner on record for that fiscal year. So, and then we're getting some other questions, and we are in touch with the class council. Their response is, well, get all these questions, let's wait for a month to 45 days and see like what volume of, questions you get. And then they might give us a better answer. Like, for instance, if someone passed away and the check is to their name, like what do we do? So situations like that, we are just holding off on those questions, and we'll get back to whoever called us after checking with the class council. So that's the summary.
So just the degree of exposure is what, 2.5 million or something? But what's the degree of notices that you sent out? Was that 98% of the total or something like that? I'm just, what's unresolved in that total exposure?
You mean how many instances of,
Well, I'm wondering if you sent out, whatever you sent out so far.
We sent out 31,000 payments, and we have received about a little over 100 phone calls. So it's not close, nowhere close to it.
I'm just thinking of your calculation about what you sent out. Is that 2 million out of the 2.5?
We send out 2.6 million, all of it. So settlement fund, it was prorated across all the agencies.
The ones that are
Yeah,
not resolved because of the response or the
Exactly.
tracking or
in
something.
terms of getting it to the,
I got it.
the,
Right.
the identity of the recipient or something?
Yeah, 3.3.
yeah.
Well, it's nothing like going to school again, huh?
This is one of those things where you don't get experience. You don't come across this scale of settlement. But yeah, it was a good experience.
Sounds like a exam question for some like major troubleshooting specialized accounting challenge or something.
Yeah.
It really sounds like a
We,
real challenging situation.
So this will be on the next agenda, is that the plan or not?
if someone's curious, they can look at this recording. I want to say it's on the website. I don't know how much we want to like promote this, but it's out there, and they can look at the website. They can look at this recording. And this is a result because anything that's uncashed that goes into the CPRA account, and next February or next March, we'll compile that report and then send it to United Way.
Well, I just wanted to, I've been to several, social events or whatever, some kind of event, League of Women Voters or whatever. And I'm getting questions about, I gotta check, what's that all about? I happen to know what that's all about, but it's out there, they're getting the checks now, they're raising questions. And so it may be worth saying something at the next board meeting about the report and saying there may be questions and you'll be, and so, just hope you can help respond to whatever.
Does the paper that is sent out with the check, does it say what it's for?
It does say water supply fee reimbursement, and then it has an APN number. Because some owners have multiple APN numbers, so it has the APN number, the number sequenced out, and then it says water supply fee.
And a lot of people probably don't know
It's like,
what that is.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I guess too.
all right.
It doesn't say anything about property taxes on it. Yeah,
We made an attempt to fit that in, but it wasn't like their system didn't allow it, and I was like, okay, I'll do your best, send it out, and yeah, I mean, it at least has the water supply.
resupply charge, refund,
Yeah.
good enough.
Well, I only raised a question about just the PR side of this. Is it possible that the outreach could put, I don't know the value of this. I'm not even sure I want to suggest that we do this, but I want to just raise a question. Could there be just a public, image issue about so cash in your pocket or whatever? I don't know. And I'm not trying to be a PR person, but to let them know that this is out there. You may have questions. This is what it's about. Just
So the Pinecone ran an article a couple weeks ago about this process of the checks and all that, so. It's been in print, it wasn't an ad or anything like that. And I think we were kind of,
Oh, did it misrepresent some facts that are,
I read it, but I didn't.
yeah, I can't remember it. If
But
so, we should
One
correct.
of the things that we did, one of the ads early on, is like a year in review, and we did list the water supply refund. As part of the thing that we were doing for the year, so,
Mhm.
you know. We hadn't recognized it, and whether or not we wanna.
well, and I can see.
I see your point, maybe we can do something.
And I don't know, I'm not a good idea or not, just the thought occurred to me, but I've seen Rick Hoyer's letter or something, he's taken what we did.
So what we have in mind for the board meeting is a brief report, a brief update. And we can mention there that all the details are on the website. Or the website has,
It's a current event, because
Yeah.
people are getting this stuff now, so.
yeah, the important thing is to say that all the checks were mailed out in March,
Yes,
right?
we met the deadline in spite of all the jumping through the hoops,
Yeah.
yes,
Despite a lot of technical challenges.
yeah.
Backstory is interesting too, but not necessarily
Yeah.
in public.
Not at all, that's just for us.
Okay, well, now that's a good report. I like.
Thank you. I'm sorry it was so much work.
We made it.
Okay. Or
So the agenda coming up, I didn't see anything unique on there. Is there something unique that we should look at? I didn't notice it.
That header titled board workshop, Mike? Where it says board workshop,
We adopted
Oh, the board workshop, okay.
under action items, under action items.
So this will be the first urban water management plan that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, or.
Yeah.
Need to go. Yeah, urban water management, this is, you're just gonna hear, about it. Then in May, you'll need to approve it.
So will there be a draft for the
Yeah,
board
it
meeting?
should be coming out today. Unless you want to go out today, but.
Well,
Well, there's a inquiry to legal on that, you guys should be getting it shortly.
okay, thank you, Michael.
It's exciting, we're stepping into the world of, water wholesaler and this reporting that you have to do and, obviously we may differ in our urban water management plan than the retailer, and that's fine, and I think you'll hear some of those reasonings, but it's, yeah, we're excited.
So this could be of interest to the general public.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that notice that's going out, we're reaching out to the different land use agencies and cities and things like that, and then to
Good,
look at it.
good, good,
They can come in as well.
good.
Good, I look forward to
Yeah.
that too. Do we have any questions on the information reports or anything? I'm good with it.
The only comment we had is we don't have a closed session scheduled for this meeting. I know Director Edwards keeps asking for a closed session, but there's no new material to discuss. So I think a closed session at this point would be premature. If it's the will of the board to do something different, we certainly can, but there's just no new material.
Thanks for that. He's bugging me all the time. He bugged me all the time when I was chair. That's what he's not bugging me.
I mean,
The value of rotation.
if there's a need to discuss strategy or something, yeah, litigation strategy, we could, but timing is not,
Not at this point.
yeah.
That would just be an unnecessary cost and burden of time for everybody, but we certainly can if you guys just value there.
No, I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're in a waiting game anyway to see what's happening.
Yes. And then the other item on your agenda is the public hearing of annual vacant status of vacancies, and that's just the new statutory requirement where before you can adopt your budget, you have to basically review any open positions within the district. It's a budgeting tool, basically enforcement procedure to save the workforce, so you'll get a report on it, and I don't know what the vacancy status is.
As of now, or at the board meeting, yeah. We won't have much to report. We're a staff of 26. There are 2 recruitments in the pipeline, but everyone, we are fully staffed at the moment.
Yeah, I thought that was I know about that new requirement, but I thought we weren't too small to be subject to it, but I guess we are.
No, not that. That one, we have to annually report. It applies to all public agencies.
Uh-huh,
The Brown Act is the one that's different, in size.
yeah,
So.
okay.
Does this result to negotiation with unions, or is this state law that came?
So this is the law that came into effect last year, and basically it was union driven. And really what you see is this is a direct result of a lot of cities that have been cutting back. They're leaving positions open, which allows for budgeting issues, and then basically overworking their staff without filling the positions. And so what you have to do is, as a board, you have to receive a report on the status of vacancies, recruitment efforts, and then if there's unions within the district, they would then get an equal opportunity to provide their presentation on basically working conditions.
Okay, that's what I thought. There was some union-based reason for this.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember that.
Having worked for the state and knowing that the staff went through periods where, for budget reasons, vacant positions were deliberately not filled. It puts the staff in a dilemma, because you either do more work or you let things, pile up or fall through the cracks, which is really bad for the public and for morale.
Mhm.
I was shocked when I first started working for the state, and I found that, if work was normally assigned to a certain person and that person was out on leave for a few months for medical reasons or whatever, nobody, wasn't picked up by a coworker. So, and then it shocked me. I mean, they would say, well, that person isn't here. Too bad.
The disruption to the public service because some positions haven't been filled. So there are additional reporting requirements if there's a vacancy rate of 20% or higher. So this was an issue that I think needs to be brought up to this level for certain public agencies. And so there can see the reason why, this was passed. But we are in a pretty good shape, and we retain our employees.
So, yeah, I can understand the reason for it. Whether it will help with that problem, I don't know, but. Yeah,
Okay, thank you,
Adjourned?
everybody. Adjourned.
thank you.
Thank you.
Again, apologies for being late.